but if it is. I'm sitting here at one of my favorite restaurants in Yerevan, and thought I'd take the time to talk about some of the work I've done so far. This might be kind of repetitive, but I don't really care. I will continue repeat these things until something changes. So, I'm gonna start with reading what I've written so far in my report, which goes right now under the name Rainbow Families and the Homosexual Agenda, but we'll see about the title when I'm done. Alright, so sexuality have been a subject of research for a very long time, and discussed even longer. But even though we come far and groundbreaking studies have been made, a lot of people seem to need to get their facts straight. Even politicians and the highly educated still believe in a lot of the myths and stereotypes about sexual minorities. Iran still practices the death penalty on homosexual behavior. LGBTs face discrimination, violence and crimes of hate all over the world, while Uganda seemed to go in an opposite direction of what would be recommended by an international organization. The facts are there, and have always been there, supporting what by opponents have been called the homosexual agenda. But still we seem to go nowhere. What we need is education. It doesn't matter if you have a PhD. You're still likely to be homophobic if you don't know the facts about human sexuality. I really want to stress this point. Because whenever you say that education is the key, you are met with the same arguments, such as, oh, you only want to push your agenda to the schools, or you're just trying to recruit our children. And here we have a catch-22, because these sorts of arguments are based on a general lack of understanding, and in order for them to understand, we need to educate. Well, in order for them to understand why we need to educate, we need to educate. The second problem is that the people making the claims either have no interest in looking at the facts, or maybe even have, but is disregarding them for their own personal gain, whatever that would be. There really aren't any other good explanations, since the psychiatric, psychological and sociological communities all have reached a consensus on these issues. And unless you go to unscientific sources, such as the Family Research Council or the Catholic Church, you're unable to find facts supporting the argument that LGBTs shouldn't be allowed to form a family. The latter of the mentioned sources, the Catholic Church, however, will need to change their stand if they're willing to listen to the Catholic community out there in the real world, and this I will explain later in this article. It is my belief that the concept of family has many factors contributing to a better society, and that an expansion of the same concept would be beneficent for everyone. Economically, for example, families contribute to society by working and paying taxes. Here the concept of same-sex marriage have an advantage, since studies show that they, especially men living together, earn more in average and therefore pay more taxes. Raising children to be good citizens, educated and tolerant is another factor. Children often mimic their parents, and it is therefore important that children are raised in a stable home. Once again, the same-sex couples have an advantage. They have been shown to be less likely to use physical punishment. A person living in a same-sex relationship is less likely to hit or beat up their partner, and, as mentioned before, they are often more economically stable. Now, a lot of people say that the children will become homosexual or have sort of gender confusion. And even if I don't see the problem with that, I will address this notion further on. To back me up, I've looked through reports and summaries of studies done by 3 different organizations, mostly. It's the American Psychological Association, the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, and the American Sociological Association. They have all done research themselves and summarized other studies, from Evelyn Hooker in 1957 through Henry Adams in 1996 until today. Most of the studies are from the United States, but other countries are represented. To get another point of view, I have looked through the reports from the Family Resource Center, FRC. This is what I've written so far, and I want to talk to you about it, because it's really frustrating when you get in a discussion about LGBT parenting. Let's see. Because when I look through all these studies, not just from these three organizations, but also from it's the Child Welfare League of America, and it's the American Academy of Pediatrics, and a lot of different organizations, all the major institutions that works with the child welfare. They have all reached consensus. They have all done studies and presented studies showing that there is no difference whatsoever in children being raised by same-sex parents or heterosexual parents. But still there are people making these claims, like the Family Resource Council. And I've looked at their reports. They have no science at all behind their research. Actually, one of the very few differences that have been found was the American Sociological Association, which reported that Judith Stacy, Professor Judith Stacy, I think from the NYU, she reported that her studies have found that children raised by LGBT parents are more likely to be flexible in their gender identity than children to heterosexual parents. But she also continued that statement with saying that any democracy should accept this as something good. I mean, all difference isn't bad. And really, I can't see anything bad with flexibility in gender identity. I think it would be a great leap forward, or how to say it, in the equality between men and women. So I'm not gonna take up much more of your time, but I will continue reporting probably later this week. I'll do another video, bit more comprehensive, but thank you for listening for now.